Paul Teutul Sr.'s life is often remembered for one explosive moment: firing his own son, Paul Jr., on television in 2008 while millions watched. To the audience, it looked like another dramatic outburst on American Chopper. But the truth behind that moment ran far deeper than motorcycles, money, or television ratings. It was the result of a lifetime shaped by violence, addiction, control, and unresolved pain that began long before fame ever entered the picture. Paul was born on May 1, 1949, in Yonkers, New York, into a home filled with chaos. His childhood was marked by screaming matches, heavy drinking, and physical abuse. His mother drank excessively and openly belittled his father, while his father worked long hours and frequently took his anger out on Paul. Violence was unpredictable. Paul could be sitting quietly doing homework when his father would suddenly strike him hard enough to draw blood. If Paul asked why, the response was cold and dismissive, as if pain required no explanation. There was no sense of safety, affection, or stability in the house. Love, as Paul learned it, came with fear and shouting. By the time he was a child, Paul had already learned that home was not a place of comfort. His mother's drinking made her distant and cruel, offering no warmth or reassurance. As he grew older, the damage settled in. Paul Jr. would later say that something inside his father had been broken early on, shaped by a childhood where anger replaced care and control replaced trust. Paul didn't know what a healthy family looked like, and that absence followed him for decades. At around 10 years old, Paul began avoiding home whenever he could. He spent hours outside collecting scrap metal, tinkering with parts, and welding pieces together. Working with machines gave him peace and a sense of control he never felt around people. Tools and grease became his refuge. That escape soon turned into obsession. At 12, he broke into a neighbor's garage and stole tools, which he used to build a crude motorcycle. It wasn't rebellion for fun. It was a grasp at freedom and power in a life where he had none. School never held his interest. Authority figures felt no different from the adults at home who shouted and hit. By 16, Paul dropped out of high school without a diploma or plan. Around the same time, his drinking escalated. What started as stolen beer quickly turned into hard liquor. By his late teens, blackouts were common, and he often woke up without any memory of where he'd been. His anger became sharper, his mood swings more extreme, and the people around him noticed. In 1966, Paul joined the Merchant Marines, hoping discipline and distance might straighten him out. Instead, it worsened his habits. Drinking was common among sailors, and Paul fit right in. He fought, showed up intoxicated, and disappeared during port stops. On one voyage, he drank so heavily that he nearly fell overboard and woke up in the ship's medical bay. When he returned home in 1969, he married Paula and soon became a father, but responsibility did not slow him down. His drinking intensified, and his home became just as violent as the one he'd grown up in. Between 1970 and 1972, police were called to the house repeatedly. Neighbors heard shouting and crashes. Paula often had bruises. Paul smashed dishes, threw furniture, and disappeared for days on drinking binges. In 1972, he crashed his pickup truck into a tree after drinking heavily, suffering severe injuries and nearly dying. Doctors warned him that another accident could kill him. 2 days after being discharged, still in a body cast, he was drinking again. The following years were marked by instability. Paul lost job after job for showing up drunk, passing out at work, or fighting supervisors. He lived off welfare and odd jobs, sometimes trading labor for alcohol. In 1973, despite everything falling apart, he started a small welding business with almost no money. Even then, he drank daily while trying to keep the business alive. In 1981, he brought his young son Paul Jr. into the shop. The environment was dangerous and tense, but Paul Jr. learned quickly and eventually took on leadership responsibilities. Their relationship, however, was strained from the beginning. Paul Sr. was volatile and controlling, while Paul Jr. tried to stabilize the chaos. In 1985, after decades of destruction, Paul finally reached a breaking point. He promised his wife he would attend an AA meeting. He went and then he kept going. For 9 years he didn't miss a single meeting. Sobriety slowly changed his life. His thinking cleared, his business grew, and Orange County Iron Works became successful. Yet the fear of losing control never left him. By the late 1990s, Paul sold his iron business and took a massive risk by launching Orange County Choppers. He poured his savings into it and built custom motorcycles that stood out for their bold designs. His first major success came in 1999 when one of his bikes won at Daytona, bringing in hundreds of thousands of dollars in new orders. That success paved the way for American Chopper, which debuted in the early 2000s and turned the family into reality TV stars. Fame magnified everything. Paul Sr.'s temper became entertainment. His need for control intensified. He monitored employees, enforced rigid rules, and clashed constantly with his sons. The business made millions, but the family dynamic grew more toxic by the year. Arguments turned physical, chairs were thrown, and resentment boiled over on camera. In 2008, during one of those confrontations, Paul Sr. fired Paul Jr. on set. It became one of the most infamous moments in reality television history. Lawsuits followed, and the family stopped speaking for nearly a decade. The brand continued, but the foundation was cracking. Financial decisions went bad, massive properties were lost, and by 2018, Paul Sr. filed for bankruptcy, revealing how far he had fallen from his peak. Behind the scenes, addiction never fully loosened its grip. Relapses, prescription drugs, gambling, and risky business ventures drained both money and trust. Relationships with his sons deteriorated further. He missed milestones, including Paul Jr.'s wedding, a regret he would later admit publicly. By his mid-70s, Paul Sr. began confronting truths he had avoided his entire life. He spoke openly about therapy, childhood trauma, and the way his need for control had destroyed his relationships. He admitted that firing his son was the biggest mistake he ever made. While he continued working on bikes and supporting charities, the empire he once built was gone. Paul Teutul Sr.'s legacy is complicated. He changed motorcycle culture and helped define modern reality television, but the cost was enormous. His story is not just about fame and failure, but about how unhealed pain can echo through generations. Some machines can be rebuilt. Families are far harder to fix.